It was supposed to be a simple home security setup. A small motion-activated camera mounted above a neighbor's front door in a quiet residential street. Nothing unusual, nothing remarkable. But on this particular evening, the camera was not even facing the right direction. It had been slightly tilted and never corrected. Instead of pointing directly at the street, it captured only part of a driveway, a fragment of sidewalk, and a narrow slice of the road. Most people would have considered it useless. On the night of the disappearance, that assumption nearly cost investigators the entire case. At 1943, the camera activated after detecting motion. The footage showed ordinary activity, a passing car, faint movement from tree branches, until something shifted. For just a few seconds, a shadow crossed the extreme edge of the frame. It was incomplete, barely noticeable, and quickly disappeared. When the footage was first reviewed, it was dismissed. There was no clear subject, no identifiable figure, and no obvious incident. The following morning, a missing person report was filed. A 27-year-old man, known for his routine lifestyle, had failed to return home. There were no signs of voluntary disappearance, no packed belongings, no financial activity, no communication. His last known location placed him walking along the same residential street where the misaligned camera was installed. Investigators began collecting surveillance footage from nearby homes. Several cameras captured fragments of the area, but none showed the moment anything happened. One camera recorded the victim entering the street. Another further away failed to show him leaving. There were no witnesses, no sounds of disturbance, and no visible signs of struggle. The timeline stopped abruptly. Initially, the misaligned neighbor's camera was considered irrelevant. It did not face the correct direction and did not show the victim. But as inconsistencies in the timeline grew, investigators returned to it for a second review. This time, they analyzed it frame by frame. At first, the footage appeared unchanged. But when slowed down and enhanced, the brief shadow at the edge of the frame behaved differently than expected. It did not move naturally. It paused, shifted direction, and then vanished. That subtle irregularity raised questions. Further examination revealed something even more significant. A parked vehicle across the street had a reflective surface that briefly captured movement outside the camera's field of view. The reflection lasted less than 2 seconds, but it showed the presence of a figure passing behind the blind spot. The individual could not be identified, but the timing aligned precisely with when the victim was last known to be in that area. This transformed the footage from irrelevant to critical. Investigators began reconstructing the scene. They mapped the camera's angle, recreated lighting conditions, and aligned the timestamps with other available footage. The results suggested that the victim entered a blind zone not covered directly by any camera. Within seconds, movement occurred just outside the misaligned camera's view. The only evidence of that movement came from reflections, shadows, and subtle environmental changes. Additional details began to align. A nearby device captured a faint disruption in ambient sound at the same time. A resident later recalled their dog reacting unexpectedly that evening. Individually, these details meant nothing. Together, they supported the conclusion that something had happened in that exact moment. The breakthrough came from a deeper analysis of a single reflective frame. Investigators identified a brief glint of metallic surface, something not visible directly, only through reflection. At first, it was dismissed as visual noise, but spatial alignment revealed that it corresponded to a vehicle positioned just outside the camera's view. Reviewing earlier footage, investigators identified a delivery-style van that passed through the area multiple times that day. It had not been considered suspicious at first. However, its position at the critical timestamp placed it directly within the blind zone where the incident likely occurred. The camera had not captured the event itself, but it had recorded its perimeter. Using traffic cameras and road surveillance, investigators traced the vehicle leaving the area shortly after the estimated time of disappearance. The movement pattern matched gaps in coverage, but was sufficient to establish direction and timing. This led to the identification of a suspect connected to the vehicle. The individual was later located and detained. Evidence gathered from multiple sources, including the reconstructed timeline and indirect camera footage, confirmed involvement in the disappearance. In the end, no single camera captured the full truth. There was no clear recording of the incident itself, but the misaligned neighbor's camera, once dismissed as useless, provided the critical link. It recorded movement, reflection, and timing all from the edge of its frame. What investigators initially overlooked became the foundation of the case. The camera was not pointed at the scene. It did not show what happened directly, but it captured enough to reveal that something did happen, and when combined with other evidence, that was all that was needed. It wasn't pointed at the truth, but it still recorded it.